Sometimes a man reaches a moment where everything he's built, everything he believes in, hangs in the balance of a single choice. For Jack Morrison, that moment comes on a Tuesday morning in a Nevada hangar, facing the woman who holds his future in her hands. Selena Brooks wants to shut down his veteran flight program. She's corporate, efficient, and convinced his old jets are worthless. They've fought for months over budgets and policies. Today, she makes him an offer that sounds like a joke. If you can fly that old plane upside down for 60 seconds, I'll marry you, she says with a smirk. The mechanics laugh. Everyone knows it's impossible. The jet hasn't been cleared for stunts in years, but Jack doesn't laugh. He climbs into the cockpit and starts the engine. What happens next will change both their lives forever. But will her challenge cost more than either of them expected? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Nevada morning air carried the familiar scent of jet fuel and desert dust as Jack Morrison walked through Nellis Air Force Base's auxiliary hangar. At 52, his gait still held the confident bearing of a career military pilot. Though silver now threaded through his dark hair and lines mapped the corners of his eyes, testament to decades of squinting into cockpit displays and desert sun. His weathered leather flight log, thick with years of entries, rested under his arm like a trusted companion. Inside those pages lived every mission, every training flight, every moment that had shaped him from a young hotshot into the steady instructor he'd become. The log bore coffee stains, fuel smudges, and the careful handwriting of a man who understood that details mattered when lives hung in the balance. "Morning. Skip!" called Tony Martelli from beneath the wing of an F-16. Grease streaked the veteran mechanic's coveralls, and his Brooklyn accent still carried strong after 20 years in the desert. "She's purring like a kitten today. New hydraulics came in yesterday." Jack nodded, running his hand along the aircraft's fuselage with the reverence of a man touching something sacred. This wasn't just metal and circuits, it was purpose-made manifest. The veteran reintegration flight program had been his vision, born from watching too many good soldiers struggle to find their place in civilian life. Here, former military pilots could rebuild their confidence, their sense of mission, their connection to something larger than themselves. Dad's already here. 16-year-old Lily Morrison emerged from the office trailer, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had her mother's gentle features, but Jack's direct gaze, a combination that made her seem older than her years. "Weekend warrior," Jack smiled, accepting the coffee she offered. "You didn't have to come in. History project on aviation careers," she said, though they both knew she came because she loved watching her father work. Since Sarah's death 3 years ago, Lily had become his anchor, the reason he chose careful precision over reckless courage. The hangar buzzed with purposeful activity. Marcus Webb, a former Navy pilot whose drinking had cost him his civilian job, checked instruments with the focused intensity of a man rebuilding his life, one procedure at a time. Robert Kim worked alongside him, the former Air Force captain's steady hands belying the PTSD that had grounded him 2 years prior. Both men had found something here that therapy and medication couldn't provide, a reason to trust themselves again. Morrison, Chief Master Sergeant Diana Foster's voice carried the authority of 3 decades in the service. She approached with a tablet in hand, her expression mixing respect with concern. "We need to talk." Jack followed her to the office, noting how Lily quietly positioned herself where she could overhear. The teenager had developed a 6th sense for adult conversations that might affect their small family. "Budget review came back," Foster said without preamble. "They're looking at a 40% cut across all auxiliary programs." The words hit like turbulence, expected but still jarring. Jack had seen the writing on the wall for months. Defense spending shifted toward drone technology and cyber warfare. Traditional pilot training programs, especially those serving veterans no longer on active duty, fell into an increasingly narrow margin of acceptable expenses. 40% means we're done, Jack said quietly. "Can't run safety protocols with skeleton crew. Gets worse." There's a civilian contractor coming to evaluate the program. Some hotshot from Apex Aerospace. Word is, they're pushing for complete shutdown, want to repurpose the facility for drone testing. Through the office window, Jack watched Marcus guide a nervous trainee through pre-flight checks. 6 months ago, that trainee had been living in his car, convinced he'd never fly again after a crash that killed his co-pilot. Now he was 3 weeks from certification that would qualify him for commercial pilot programs. When do they arrive? Jack asked. Today, actually. Foster checked her watch. Should be here any minute. The distant hum of rotors announced the arrival of a corporate helicopter, its sleek lines a stark contrast to the military aircraft surrounding them. Jack stepped outside, Lily at his side, watching as the chopper settled onto the designated landing pad with mechanical precision. 3 figures emerged. 2 assistants in matching grey suits carrying tablets and briefcases, followed by a woman who commanded attention without effort. Even at a distance, Selena Brooks projected the kind of confidence that came from years of making decisions worth millions of dollars. Her dark hair was pulled into a professional chignon, and her navy business suit spoke of boardrooms and bottom lines. "That's her," Lily whispered. Jack nodded, studying the woman who held his program's fate in her hands. Selena Brooks, CEO of Apex Aerospace's Military Contracts Division. He'd researched her extensively. MIT engineering degree, Harvard MBA, a reputation for ruthless efficiency in contract negotiations. At 38, she'd built her career on identifying waste and maximizing value, turning struggling defense contractors into profitable enterprises. "She looks like trouble," Lily observed with the blunt honesty of 16. "She looks like someone doing her job," Jack corrected, though privately he agreed. Everything about Selena Brooks suggested a woman who saw numbers where he saw lives, efficiency where he saw purpose. As the Apex team approached, Jack noticed how Selena's gaze swept the hangar with analytical precision. She wasn't seeing aircraft, she was calculating square footage, assessing utility costs, measuring potential. Her assistants flanked her like corporate bodyguards, tablets ready to document anything that might support their predetermined conclusions. "Mr. Morrison?" Selena's voice carried the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "I'm Selena Brooks, Apex Aerospace. I believe we have some things to discuss." Her handshake was firm, professional, and exactly as cold as he'd expected. But something in her eyes, a brief flicker of what might have been curiosity, suggested there was more to Selena Brooks than quarterly reports and cost-benefit analyses. "Welcome to Nellis Auxiliary," Jack replied, "though I suspect you're not here for the tour." "No," she agreed, producing a pristine business card from her jacket pocket. The card was embossed, expensive, everything about it radiating corporate precision. "I'm here to determine whether this program justifies continued funding. From what I've seen so far, that's going to be a very difficult case to make." The gauntlet had been thrown. Jack slipped the business card into his flight log, between pages, documenting years of successful training missions and transformed lives. The contrast wasn't lost on him. Cold efficiency pressed against human purpose. A corporate necessity challenging personal mission. "Well then," Jack said, his voice carrying the calm certainty of a man who'd faced longer odds. "I guess we'd better get started." The decommission notice arrived in Selena's hands like a death sentence wrapped in corporate letterhead. Official Apex Aerospace stationery, embossed seal, the kind of document that ended careers and shattered dreams with clinical efficiency. Jack watched her review it, noting how her manicured fingers traced each line with the precision of someone accustomed to delivering bad news. "Effective in 30 days, she announced to the assembled group in the hangar's main bay. Tony Marcelli stopped his wrench work. Marcus Webb and Robert Kim exchanged glances that spoke volumes about men who'd already lost too much. Lily moved closer to her father, as if proximity could somehow shield him from what was coming. "The veteran reintegration flight program will be discontinued," Selena continued, her voice carrying across the hangar with boardroom authority. "The facility will be repurposed for unmanned aerial systems testing." All personnel have until month's end to submit transfer requests or seek alternative employment. Chief Foster stepped forward. Ma'am, with respect, this program has a 92% success rate. These men are what, Sergeant? Selena's interruption was sharp, but not unkind. Costing taxpayers $3.7 million annually to retrain pilots for a civilian market that's increasingly automated. I understand the humanitarian aspect, but sentiment doesn't justify expenditure. Jack felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came with watching something precious slip away. This wasn't about money. It was about Marcus, who'd found sobriety through the discipline of flight protocols. About Robert, whose night terrors had diminished once he'd regained confidence in the cockpit. About dozens of veterans who'd walked into this hangar broken and left with purpose. You want to talk about costs? Jack's voice carried the quiet intensity that had once commanded respect in combat situations. Let's talk about Marcus there. Homeless 18 months ago, drinking himself to death. Now he's 3 weeks from commercial certification. What's the cost of one more veteran suicide, Ms. Brooks? Because that's what you're really calculating. Selena's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her professional mask. Mr. Morrison, I understand your passion, but emotional appeals don't address fiscal reality. This program serves fewer than 50 veterans annually. The same funding could support job training for 500. Job training to do what? Stack boxes? Flip burgers? Jack stepped closer, and Lily noticed her father's hands clenching into fists. These men were pilots. They commanded million-dollar aircraft, made split-second decisions that saved lives. You want to retrain them to ask if customers want fries with that? The hangar had grown quiet, except for the distant hum of air conditioning and the occasional clink of tools. Every person present understood they were witnessing more than a budget discussion. This was a clash between two fundamentally different ways of seeing value. I want to provide practical solutions, Selena replied, but Jack caught something in her tone that hadn't been there before. Uncertainty, perhaps, or the first crack in her corporate certainty. The military taught these men discipline and teamwork. Those skills transfer to many civilian careers. Skills transfer, Jack repeated, shaking his head. You hear that, Marcus? Your 15 years flying combat missions in Afghanistan? They transfer. Robert's expertise guiding multi-million-dollar aircraft through hostile airspace. Transferable skills, Tony Marcelli cleared his throat. Skip, maybe we should... No. Jack's voice cut through the attempt at diplomacy. Ms. Brooks wants to talk numbers. Let's talk numbers. Show her the success rate. Show her the employment statistics. Show her what happens when we give these men what they need, instead of what some spreadsheet says they should want. Selena consulted her tablet, fingers moving with practiced efficiency across the screen. Your program costs $74,000 per successful placement. Comparable civilian training programs average $12,000. And how many of those civilian programs work with combat veterans who wake up screaming? How many deal with men who've watched their friends die in aircraft accidents? How many understand that some people need to fly to remember who they are? The challenge hung in the air like smoke from a downed aircraft. Jack saw Lily watching him with worried eyes, recognizing the passion that had driven him to create this program, the same intensity that sometimes kept him awake at night. Planning new ways to help veterans find their footing, Selena closed her tablet with a decisive snap. The sound echoed through the hangar like a gavel dropping. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate your dedication, but my decision is final. This program is not financially viable. Then prove it, Jack said quietly. I beg your pardon? Prove that what we do here doesn't have value. Not with numbers on a screen, but with actual understanding. Jack gestured toward the F-16. Take that aircraft. According to your analysis, it's obsolete technology, a relic from a bygone era of warfare. Correct? Selena glanced at the jet, its sleek lines still impressive despite its age. The F-16 platform is being phased out in favor of fifth-generation fighters. These particular aircraft are scheduled for decommission, so it's worthless. For modern combat applications, yes. Jack smiled, not with humor, but with the grim satisfaction of a man laying his cards on the table. That aircraft has logged over 4,000 flight hours. It's survived combat missions in 3 different theaters. The men who fly it develop an understanding of physics, mechanics, and precision that can't be taught in any classroom. Mr. Morrison, where exactly are you going with this? The moment stretched like the seconds before a difficult landing. Jack looked around the hangar at the faces watching him, veterans who'd found purpose, mechanics who'd dedicated their lives to keeping these machines airworthy. His daughter who'd grown up believing that some things were worth fighting for. Tell you what, Ms. Brooks, if that aircraft is as worthless as your analysis suggests, it shouldn't matter who flies it or how they fly it. Right? Selena's eyes narrowed. I'm not following. Simple demonstration. If I can take that obsolete aircraft and fly it, inverted for 60 consecutive seconds, something your modern risk assessments would never allow, you keep the program funded for another. Yeah. The hangar erupted in surprised murmurs. Tony dropped his wrench. Marcus and Robert exchanged looks of disbelief. Chief Foster stepped forward as if to intervene. And if you can't, Selena asked, her voice carefully neutral, then you shut us down tomorrow. And I'll personally recommend every veteran here for your job training programs. Selena studied Jack's face, searching for any sign that this was some elaborate bluff. But Jack Morrison had spent 30 years in situations where hesitation meant death. His expression held the calm certainty of a man who'd calculated the odds and found them acceptable. That's completely insane, she said finally. Ma'am, Tony called out. That bird hasn't been cleared for aerobatic maneuvers in 3 years, Jack finished. I know, but she's airworthy, and the physics haven't changed. Selena looked around the hangar, taking in the faces of everyone watching this unprecedented negotiation. She could simply refuse, walk away, let the decommission notice stand. But something in Jack's quiet confidence had shifted the dynamic. This wasn't just about budgets anymore. And if you crash, she asked, then your problem solves itself. The callousness of it hit everyone simultaneously. Lily stepped forward, her face pale. Dad, you can't. It's okay, sweetheart. Jack's voice softened as he looked at his daughter. Sometimes you have to put everything on the line for what matters. Selena felt the weight of every gaze in the hangar. These people were looking at her as if she held the power of life and death, which, in a way, she did. The program, their livelihoods, their sense of purpose, all of it balanced on her response to what was essentially a dare. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Jack asked. You're here to determine value. I'm offering to demonstrate it. Unless you're afraid that your analysis might be wrong. The challenge was expertly delivered. Professional courtesy wrapped around a dare that questioned her competence. Selena recognized the technique from her own boardroom negotiations. Jack Morrison might be a pilot, but he understood pressure tactics. Fine, she heard herself say, the word escaping before her rational mind could intervene. If you can fly that aircraft inverted for 60 seconds, I'll reconsider the program's status. Jack extended his hand. And if I can't? Selena looked at his offered handshake, realizing she was about to agree to something that would either save or destroy everything these people had built. Then you shut down voluntarily and recommend alternative career paths for your veterans. They shook hands while the hangar watched in stunned silence. The decommission notice crinkled in Selena's other hand, a reminder that what had started as a routine budget review had somehow become a test of skill, nerve, and the value of human purpose against corporate efficiency. When? Selena asked. Jack checked his watch. Give me 2 hours for pre-flight checks. As he walked toward the aircraft, Lily caught his arm. Dad, this is crazy. That aircraft will fly exactly the way it's supposed to, Jack said gently. Trust me, kiddo. Sometimes the only way to prove something has value is to risk everything for it. Selena watched him go, the decommission notice still in her hand, wondering what she'd just agreed to and why a part of her, a part she'd thought was buried under years of corporate pragmatism, hoped Jack Morrison would prove her wrong. The small photograph tucked into Jack's cockpit visor showed Lily at age 12, grinning gap-toothed beside her first solo bicycle ride. He'd carried it through countless flights, a reminder that every risk he took rippled through her life. Now, as he began pre-flight checks on the F-16, that photo seemed to weigh more than the aircraft itself. "Engine diagnostics look good," Tony called from his position near the intake. "But Skip, that inverted flight system hasn't been tested since the last maintenance cycle. We're talking about sustained negative G-forces on hydraulics that were designed for positive load." Jack nodded, running his hands along the control surfaces with practiced familiarity. Every pilot developed a personal relationship with their aircraft, a sense of how the machine responded, where its limits lay, what it would forgive and what it wouldn't. This particular F-16 had been his training bird for 3 years, reliable and responsive, but aerobatic maneuvers pushed any aircraft beyond normal parameters. "Dad." Lily appeared at his elbow, her young face creased with worry that made her look far older than 16. "This isn't just about the program, is it?" Jack paused in his inspection, recognizing the perceptiveness that reminded him so much of her mother. Sarah had possessed the same ability to see through surface explanations to underlying truth. "What do you mean?" "You could have negotiated, shown her the success stories, the statistics, maybe bought time for appeals." Lily's voice carried the careful reasoning of someone who'd grown up in a military family, accustomed to strategic thinking. "But you chose the most dangerous option. Why?" The question hit deeper than she probably intended. Jack found himself looking across the hangar to where Selena stood with her assistants, their tablets and smartphones creating a digital bubble around her. She was fielding phone calls, probably explaining to corporate supervisors why a routine facility assessment had turned into a high-stakes demonstration. "Sometimes," Jack said carefully, "you reach a point where compromise isn't enough, where you have to prove something fundamental about who you are and what you stand for. And if you die proving it." The bluntness of the question caught him off guard. Lily had Sarah's directness too, the ability to cut through emotional deflection and ask what mattered. "I'm not going to die, kiddo. You don't know that. You can't know that." Her voice carried the fear of someone who'd already lost one parent and couldn't bear the thought of losing another. "Mom died because she was trying to help someone. You're risking your life because you're trying to help people. Do you see the pattern?" Jack felt the familiar ache that came with memories of Sarah, her dedication to her work as a trauma surgeon, the late nights spent saving lives, the car accident that took her while rushing to respond to a multi-vehicle emergency. The parallel Lily drew wasn't lost on him. "Your mother saved lives," he said quietly. "What I'm doing here, it's the same thing, just different circumstances." "No, it's not." Lily's voice carried an edge he rarely heard from her. "Mom saved lives by being careful, skilled, methodical. You're saving lives by being reckless." Before Jack could respond, Marcus Webb approached with a clipboard of technical specifications. The former Navy pilot had been working with the ground crew, double-checking systems that hadn't been stressed in aerobatic configuration for years. "Flight controls test clean," Marcus reported, though his expression suggested concern. "But Jack, we've got to talk about G-force limitations. Sustained inverted flight put stress on systems that weren't designed for extended negative loading." "How extended?" Jack asked. 60 seconds is a lifetime in aerobatic terms. Most demonstration flights do inverted passes of 15, maybe 20 seconds maximum. Jack studied the technical readouts, calculating stress factors and safety margins. With the methodical approach that had kept him alive through decades of flying, the numbers were manageable but not comfortable, acceptable risk rather than safe certainty. "What's the failure rate?" Lily asked, reading over her father's shoulder. Marcus hesitated. "In aircraft this age, with these specifications, under these conditions, maybe 5% chance of hydraulic failure, 3% electrical, 2% structural. So 10% chance something goes wrong," Lily calculated with mathematical precision that reminded Jack how bright his daughter was. "Not quite," Jack corrected gently. "Those percentages don't add up directly, but yes, there's risk." Across the hangar, Selena finished her phone call and walked toward their group. Her heels clicked against the concrete with businesslike precision, but Jack noticed something different in her posture. The rigid corporate authority had given way to something more uncertain. "Mr. Morrison," she said, stopping just outside their circle. "I've been thinking about our agreement." "Having second thoughts?" Jack asked, though he kept his tone neutral, perhaps. Selena's admission surprised everyone, including herself. This demonstration, it's not really about proving aircraft capability, is it? It's about making a point regarding risk assessment, human judgment, experience versus data. "Sometimes the point needs making," Jack replied. "But what if you're wrong? What if the aircraft fails or you misjudge the maneuver? Then what point does that prove?" Chief Foster joined their group, her expression grave. "Ma'am, if I may, Skip. Morrison is one of the finest pilots I've ever served with. If anyone can execute this maneuver safely, it's him. But safely is relative," Selena pressed. "There's no such thing as risk-free aerobatics in an aging aircraft." Jack studied Selena's face, searching for the motivation behind her sudden concern. Was this corporate liability worry, or something more personal? "Ms. Brooks, are you trying to call off the demonstration? I'm trying to understand why you're willing to risk your life for a program that serves 50 veterans annually when alternative solutions could help hundreds." "Because those 50 aren't numbers on a spreadsheet," Lily interjected, surprising everyone with her vehemence. "They're people like Marcus, who found a reason to stay sober, like Robert, who stopped having nightmares when he started flying again, like my dad, who built something meaningful from his military experience instead of just collecting a pension." The passion in Lily's voice created an uncomfortable silence. Selena looked at the teenager with something approaching respect, recognizing another person who spoke truth without diplomatic cushioning. "Your daughter makes compelling arguments," Selena said to Jack. "She gets that from her mother, the surgeon who died helping others." Jack's surprise must have shown on his face. "You researched my family?" "I research everyone involved in programs I evaluate." Sarah Morrison was renowned for her trauma surgery work. She died responding to an emergency on Christmas Eve 3 years ago. Selena's voice softened slightly. "I'm sorry for your loss." The personal nature of the revelation shifted the dynamic between them. This wasn't just about budgets and bureaucracy anymore. Selena had taken the time to understand the human cost of the decisions she made. "Then you understand why this program matters," Jack said. "Sarah saved lives in an operating room. I'm trying to save them in a different way. By risking your own. By proving that some things have value beyond cost-benefit analysis." Selena looked around the hangar, taking in the faces of veterans who'd found purpose, mechanics who'd dedicated their skills to keeping dreams airborne. A teenager who'd grown up believing her father's mission mattered. For the first time since arriving, she seemed to see people instead of budget line items. "The demonstration stands," she said finally, "but I want additional safety protocols. Emergency crews on standby, medical personnel, backup communication systems." "Agreed," Jack said, though he wondered what had changed her mind. As Selena walked away to arrange the safety measures, Lily moved closer to her father. "She's scared," the teenager observed. "Of the liability if something goes wrong?" "No," Lily said, watching Selena coordinate with her assistants. "She's scared that you might be right, that everything she believes about efficiency and cost-effectiveness might be wrong. And if she's wrong about this, what else might she be wrong about?" Jack followed his daughter's gaze, studying Selena with new understanding. Perhaps this demonstration wasn't just about saving his program. Perhaps it was about challenging assumptions that had guided an entire career built on reducing human complexity to manageable equations. The photograph in his visor smiled down at him, reminding him that some risks were worth taking, some principles worth defending, and some moments required a man to put everything he valued on the line for what he believed in. But as he watched Lily's worried expression, Jack wondered if believing in something was worth the price his daughter might have to pay. The Bronze Star Medal lay heavy in Robert Kim's palm as he studied its worn surface in the afternoon light filtering through the hangar's high windows. He'd carried the decoration for 8 years, earned during his 3rd deployment when his quick thinking had saved a transport convoy from an ambush. Now holding it while watching Jack prepare for an impossible flight, the medal felt like a reminder of everything military service had meant: duty, sacrifice, the willingness to risk everything for something larger than yourself. You don't have to do this, you know, Robert said, approaching Jack's position near the aircraft. We could find other ways to fight the shutdown. Appeals, congressional representatives, media attention. Jack looked up from his meticulous inspection of the aircraft's control surfaces. Every bolt, every cable, every system component received his focused attention, the kind of thoroughness that separated competent pilots from dead ones. Could we? Jack asked. How long would appeals take? 6 months, a year. Meanwhile, veterans who need this program right now go without help. Better than you getting killed trying to prove a point. It's not about proving a point, Jack replied, though his tone suggested he'd been questioning his own motivations. It's about demonstrating value that can't be measured on spreadsheets. Tony Marcelli emerged from beneath the aircraft, hydraulic fluids staining his coveralls. Flight controls are responding normally, but Skip, I've got to tell you, some of these seals haven't been tested under sustained negative pressure. We're in uncharted territory here, Jack nodded, accepting the uncertainty that came with pushing machinery beyond its intended parameters. Military flying had taught him to work with calculated risks, to find the narrow margin between safety and mission accomplishment. Across the hangar, Selena stood with her assistants, but Jack noticed she'd been watching the preparation process with growing intensity. Her initial detachment had given way to something that looked like genuine concern, not for liability or corporate image, but for the human being about to climb into that cockpit. She's been asking questions, Marcus observed, following Jack's gaze. About your flight experience, safety record, family situation. Doesn't sound like standard corporate due diligence. What kind of questions? Personal ones. How long you've been flying, whether you have family obligations, what happens to Lily if something goes wrong. Marcus paused, studying Jack's expression. She seems genuinely worried about you. The observation caught Jack off guard. Selena Brooks had arrived as a corporate efficiency expert, armed with spreadsheets and predetermined conclusions. The idea that she might actually care about his welfare suggested a complexity he hadn't expected. Mr. Morrison? Selena's voice carried across the hangar as she approached their group. Could I speak with you privately? Jack followed her to a quiet corner near the office trailer, noting how she'd removed her business jacket and rolled up her sleeves, small gestures that humanized her corporate persona. I've been reviewing the technical specifications for this maneuver, she began, consulting her tablet. The stress factors, the safety margins, the potential failure points, and I think I made a mistake agreeing to this demonstration. Jack studied her face, searching for the motivation behind her concern. Corporate liability? Personal responsibility. The admission seemed to surprise her as much as it did him. If something happens to you, it's not your program that suffers. It's your daughter. Lily doesn't deserve to lose another parent because I backed you into an impossible situation. The unexpected empathy in her voice created a moment of connection Jack hadn't anticipated. This wasn't the ruthless efficiency expert he'd expected. This was someone wrestling with the human cost of business decisions. You didn't back me into anything, Jack said gently. I made this choice because I threatened to shut down everything you've built. Because I forced you to choose between accepting defeat and risking your life. Selena's voice carried genuine regret. That's not negotiation, that's coercion. Is that what you think this is about? Coercion? Selena looked toward the hangar where veterans continued their work, their purpose unchanged despite the uncertainty surrounding their future. I've spent my entire career reducing complex situations to manageable datasets. People become numbers, programs become line items, human needs become efficiency metrics. And now, Now I'm watching real people whose lives will be affected by my decisions. Marcus, who credits this program with saving his life. Robert, who found confidence again through flying. Your daughter, who's about to watch her father risk everything for strangers. Jack followed her gaze, seeing his world through her eyes, not as budget numbers, but as interconnected lives, each one carrying hopes, fears, and dependencies that couldn't be quantified. They're not strangers, he said quietly. They're why I do this, even if it costs Lily her father. The question hit like turbulence, unexpected and disorienting. Jack had been so focused on the mission, on proving the program's value, that he'd pushed aside the most important consideration, what his death would mean for his daughter. She understands the importance of the work, he said, though the words sounded hollow even to him. She's 16. Jack, she shouldn't have to understand why her father is willing to die for his job. The use of his first name created an intimacy that caught both of them off guard. Somewhere in the course of their conversation, corporate adversaries had become two people grappling with impossible choices. What are you suggesting? Jack asked. Call off the demonstration. We'll find another way to evaluate the program's worth. Maybe I can extend the assessment period, give you time to present alternative justifications. And if your corporate superiors don't accept those alternatives? Selina hesitated. Then at least Lily still has her father. Jack looked across the hangar to where his daughter sat with Chief Foster, ostensibly working on her history project, but obviously monitoring the adult conversations that would determine their future. Lily's resemblance to Sarah was strongest when she was worried. The same thoughtful expression, the same way of processing information while appearing calm. You know, Jack said slowly. Sarah used to say that the most dangerous thing about being a surgeon wasn't the technical challenges, it was the temptation to play it safe when lives were on the line. This isn't surgery. This is aerobatics. Same principle. Sometimes the greatest risk is not taking one. Selina studied his profile, seeing something she hadn't expected in the capable pilot. Not reckless bravado, but careful consideration of consequences beyond personal safety. Those veterans in there, Jack continued, they've already lost so much. Purpose, confidence, the belief that their skills matter. If I back down now, what message does that send? That when the stakes get high enough, even their advocate gives up? It sends the message that you value your daughter's welfare over your pride. And what about their welfare? What about the next veteran who might benefit from this program if it continues, or the one who won't get help if it doesn't? Selina found herself without a ready answer. Her corporate training had prepared her for financial analysis, risk assessment, and strategic planning, but not for the moral complexity of weighing one life against many, immediate safety against long-term benefit. I don't know, she admitted. I honestly don't know what the right answer is. The confession revealed a vulnerability that made Jack see her differently. Behind the corporate competence was someone struggling with decisions that affected real lives. Someone who'd perhaps built her career on clear-cut solutions, only to discover that human complexity defied simple answers. Join the club, Jack said with a slight smile. Most of the important decisions in life come without clear answers. As they stood together in the growing afternoon shadows, both of them watching the activity in the hangar, Jack realized that Selina Brooks wasn't his enemy. She was someone trying to do her job while wrestling with the same moral questions that had driven him to create the program in the first place. But understanding her conflict didn't change the fundamental issue. In less than an hour, he would climb into that cockpit and attempt a maneuver that could either save everything he'd built or destroy the life his daughter depended on. The bronze star in Robert's hand caught the light, reminding everyone present that sometimes service required sacrifice, but it didn't answer the question of whether this particular sacrifice was necessary or just prideful stubbornness dressed up as principle. Jack's military commendation hung in a simple frame above his desk in the office trailer, a distinguished flying cross earned during his final deployment, when he'd led a rescue mission through hostile airspace to extract wounded soldiers from a compromised outpost. The citation mentioned extraordinary heroism and complete disregard for personal safety, words that had once filled him with pride, but now felt like a weight on his shoulders. Selina stood studying the commendation while Jack completed his final paperwork, insurance forms, emergency contact information, the bureaucratic necessities that accompanied any high-risk activity. The evening light slanted through the trailer's small windows, casting long shadows that seemed to emphasize the gravity of what lay ahead. 27 years of active duty, Selina read from the framed documents. 12 combat deployments, 4 air medals, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Distinguished Flying Cross. She turned to face him. You could have stayed in, made full colonel, retired with a comfortable pension. Why leave for this? Jack looked up from his forms, considering how to explain a decision that had seemed obvious at the time, but grew more complex in retrospect. You know how military careers end? Most of the time, you just fade away. File reports, attend meetings, watch younger officers take on the missions that used to be yours. But you walked away at the height of your career. I walked towards something that mattered more. Jack gestured toward the hangar where veterans continued their training despite the uncertainty. In the military, you save lives by completing missions. Here, you save lives by giving people reasons to complete their own missions. Selina moved to the window, watching Marcus guide a nervous trainee through instrument procedures. The older veteran's patience was evident even from a distance. The careful way he demonstrated each step, the encouraging nods, the presence of someone who understood both the technical requirements and the emotional challenges of regaining confidence. You could have accomplished the same thing working within the system, she said. Military counseling services, veteran affairs, established programs with proper funding. Could I? Jack's question carried the weight of someone who tried conventional approaches and found them wanting. Those programs focus on job placement, disability compensation, basic needs. They don't address what happens when a man who once commanded $50 million aircraft gets told his only option is driving trucks or working security. There's nothing wrong with honest work, nothing at all. But there's something wrong with telling a surgeon he should be satisfied stocking shelves, or telling a pilot that his skills don't matter anymore. Jack stood, moving to join her at the window. These men didn't just lose jobs when they left the military. They lost identity, purpose, the sense that their expertise had value. Selina studied the activity in the hangar with new attention. What she'd initially seen as simple job training now revealed itself as something more complex, a careful process of rebuilding not just skills, but self-worth, the cost-benefit. Analysis doesn't capture that, she admitted. Numbers rarely capture what matters most. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun begin its descent toward the Nevada mountains. The harsh desert light softened into something warmer, more forgiving, the kind of light that made even utilitarian military facilities seem almost peaceful. Can I ask you something? Selina said. When you decided to risk everything on this demonstration, was it really about saving the program, or was it about proving something to yourself? The question caught Jack off guard with its perceptiveness. He'd been asking himself the same thing since agreeing to the challenge, wondering whether his motivation was noble purpose or personal pride. Maybe both, he said honestly. Sarah used to say that the most dangerous decisions are the ones where doing the right thing and proving you're right look exactly the same. Your wife was wise. She was. Also direct, sometimes brutally so. Jack smiled at the memory. She would have told me I was being an idiot for risking my life when Lily needs me. But she also would have understood why I can't let these men down. Selina turned from the window to study Jack's profile, noting the conflict in his expression, love for his daughter warring with loyalty to his mission, personal safety competing with professional obligation. What happened to her? Selina asked gently. The reports mentioned a car accident, but not the details. Jack was quiet for a long moment, remembering that Christmas Eve when everything changed. Multiple vehicle collision on I-95. Drunk driver hit a family with young children. Sarah was off duty on her way home from a department party, but she stopped to help. And another car lost control on the ice, hit the scene while she was working on one of the injured kids. Jack's voice carried the flat tone of someone who'd told this story before, but never gotten used to it. She saved the child, 8 years old, compound fractures, internal bleeding. Sarah got him stabilized, transferred to the hospital. He made a full recovery, and Sarah died en route to the hospital. Internal injuries, complications from the impact. Jack looked down at his hands, still seeing the blood that had covered them that night. She died doing what she always did, putting other people's lives ahead of her own safety. Selina felt something shift inside her chest, a recognition of loss that went beyond professional sympathy. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. For Lily, yes. She was 13, old enough to understand that her mother was gone, but not old enough to understand why good people die while drunk drivers walk away with minor injuries. And for you? Jack considered the question, thinking about the 3 years since Sarah's death and how they'd shaped his relationship with risk, purpose, and the meaning of service. For me, it was a reminder that we don't get to choose when our time runs out. We only get to choose what we do with the time we have. He looked toward the hangar where his life's work continued, despite the uncertainty. Sarah spent hers saving lives. I'm trying to do the same thing, just in a different way. Selina found herself struggling with emotions she hadn't expected. She'd come to Nevada armed with spreadsheets and efficiency metrics, prepared to make cold calculations about program viability. Instead, she was confronting the human complexity that her corporate training had taught her to minimize. Jack, she said, using his first name again without thinking. What if I told you there might be another way? What if I could restructure the program, reduce costs, find alternative funding sources? Could you? Maybe. I'd have to present it carefully, show improved efficiency metrics, demonstrate better cost-per-outcome ratios. Selina's mind was already working through possibilities, applying her corporate expertise to saving rather than destroying. It would take time, political maneuvering, creative accounting, but it might work. Jack studied her face, seeing genuine commitment behind the professional calculation. And if it doesn't work? Then at least we tried every option before risking your life. And the veterans who need help now. The ones who can't wait for bureaucratic solutions. Selina didn't have an immediate answer. Her corporate world operated on quarterly reports and annual assessments. But human need didn't follow business cycles. Veterans struggling with addiction, depression, or purposelessness couldn't wait for optimal timing. I don't know, she admitted. But I know that Lily needs her father more than this program needs a martyr. The comment hit harder than she'd intended, revealing the depth of her concern for both the teenage girl and the man who'd risked everything for his principles. Is that what you think I am? Jack asked. A martyr? I think you're a good man who's so focused on saving everyone else that he's forgotten he's worth saving too. The observation hung between them like a challenge, forcing Jack to confront motivations he'd been avoiding. Was he really fighting for his veterans, or was he running from the fear that without this mission, without this purpose, he was just another middle-aged man whose best years were behind him? Before he could answer, Lily appeared in the trailer doorway, her expression serious beyond her 16 years. Dad, she said quietly, it's time. Selina's personal notebook lay open on the metal desk in the temporary command center she'd established near the runway. Amid the technical specifications and cost analyses, her handwriting revealed something unexpected, personal observations about Jack Morrison that had nothing to do with program evaluation and everything to do with a growing attraction she hadn't anticipated. Demonstrates genuine care for veteran welfare, read one entry. Risks personal safety for others' benefit, admirable but concerning. Lower on the page, in handwriting that looked more hurried, reminds me why I chose engineering over pure business. Some problems can't be solved with spreadsheets. The notebook's margins contained sketches, not of aircraft or technical diagrams, but of Jack's profile as he worked, the concentration lines around his eyes, the way his hands moved with practiced confidence over controls and documents. Corporate executives weren't supposed to notice such details, weren't supposed to care about the personal lives of people affected by their decisions. Ms. Brooks, one of her assistants, approached with a tablet displaying incoming messages. Corporate wants an update on the assessment timeline. They're asking whether we'll have a final recommendation by end of week. Selina closed the notebook, hiding her personal observations behind professional efficiency. Tell them the evaluation is proceeding according to schedule. I'll have a comprehensive report within 72 hours. Should I mention the demonstration flight? No. The response came quickly, instinctively. No mention of unconventional assessment methods. As her assistant walked away, Selina realized she was protecting Jack from corporate scrutiny without fully understanding why. Nothing in her training suggested that personal feelings should influence business decisions. Yet here she was, actively concealing information that might complicate his situation. Across the tarmac, Jack conducted his final pre-flight briefing with Tony and the ground crew. Even at a distance, Selina could see the methodical way he approached each system check, the careful attention to details that separated experienced pilots from careless ones. But she also noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing toward where Lily waited with Chief Foster. "He's scared," she wrote in her notebook, then immediately crossed out the words. Fear wasn't the right term. Jack Morrison projected the calm confidence of someone who'd faced danger professionally for decades. But there was something else, a recognition of stakes that went beyond personal safety. "Ms. Brooks," Marcus Webb appeared beside her observation position. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Selina nodded, curious about what the veteran pilot might want to discuss. Marcus had been one of the most vocal supporters of the program, his transformation from homeless alcoholic to confident instructor serving as a powerful argument for the training's effectiveness. "I wanted to thank you," Marcus said, surprising her with his directness. "For what?" "For giving Jack the chance to prove what this place means." Marcus gestured toward the hangar, where veterans continued their work despite the uncertainty. "I know you could have just shut us down based on the numbers. The fact that you're willing to see something beyond spreadsheets that matters." Selina felt uncomfortable with the gratitude, especially since her motivations had become increasingly personal rather than professional. "I'm just trying to make an informed decision. Are you?" Marcus studied her face with the directness of someone who'd learned to read people accurately. "Because from where I stand, it looks like you're trying to save Jack from having to risk his life for us." The observation was too perceptive to deny easily. "Mr. Webb, I'm concerned about liability issues, safety protocols. Ma'am, with respect, that's corporate speak. I've seen how you watch him, how you react when someone mentions the risks he's taking." Marcus's voice carried the gentle honesty of someone who'd overcome his own delusions. "You care about him." Selina looked toward Jack, noting how he moved with unconscious grace around the aircraft, how his presence seemed to calm the nervous energy of everyone around him. "He's a good man. He's a great man. But he's also stubborn, probably too stubborn for his own good." Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "That flight he's about to take, it's not really about proving aircraft capability or program value. What's it about? Proving that he's still the man who earned all those medals, who saved all those lives, who built something meaningful after losing the most important person in his world." Marcus looked directly at Selina. "Jack Morrison has been running from his grief for 3 years. This demonstration is him finally turning around to face it." The psychological insight caught Selina off guard. She'd seen Jack as a dedicated professional, a caring father, a principled advocate for his veterans, but not as someone still processing his own loss. "What do you mean?" "Sarah died helping strangers. Jack's been trying to honor that by helping veterans, but part of him feels guilty for being alive when she's not." Marcus's voice carried the understanding of someone who'd wrestled with survivor's guilt. This flight, risking his life for others, it's his way of proving he's worthy of the second chance she didn't get. Selina felt something cold settle in her stomach. That's not honoring her memory, that's punishing himself for surviving. Exactly. And the worst part is, he's doing it in front of Lily. That girl has already lost her mother. Now she has to watch her father risk his life. Because he thinks that's what love looks like. The revelation reframed everything Selina thought she understood about Jack's motivations. This wasn't principled leadership or noble sacrifice. This was complicated grief, driving a good man toward dangerous choices. "What can I do?" she asked. "Stop him. Call off the demonstration. Give him permission to find another way. He won't listen to me. I'm the corporate enemy, remember?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "You're the woman who's been watching him like he matters to you." "Trust me, he's noticed." Selina felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ma'am, I spent 2 years drinking myself to death because I couldn't face my own feelings. I recognize emotional avoidance when I see it." Marcus's smile was gentle but knowing. "The question is whether you're going to do something about it before it's too late." Before Selina could respond, the sound of jet engines beginning their startup sequence filled the air. Across the tarmac, Jack had climbed into the cockpit and begun his final system checks. The demonstration that had started as a corporate evaluation had become something much more personal and much more dangerous. Selina looked down at her notebook, seeing her own handwriting documenting feelings she'd been trying to ignore. "Demonstrates genuine care. Reminds me why I chose engineering." The sketches of his profile, the observations about his character, the growing concern for his welfare, all evidence of something that had no place in a business decision. "He's really going to do this," she said, watching Jack complete his pre-flight checklist with methodical precision, unless someone gives him a reason not to. Selina closed her notebook and stood, her corporate heels clicking against the concrete as she walked toward the aircraft. She didn't have a plan, didn't know what she could say that would change Jack's mind. But Marcus was right about one thing. She cared about what happened to Jack Morrison, and caring meant taking action even when the outcome was uncertain. The jet engines grew louder, their whine echoing off the hangar walls like a countdown to an irreversible moment. Somewhere in that sound was the future of the veteran program, the resolution of her corporate assignment, and the answer to questions about love, loss, and the price of principle that she'd never expected to face. But mostly, there was the sound of a good man about to risk everything, for reasons that had more to do with grief than heroism, and a woman who'd finally admitted to herself that watching him do it was unacceptable. The anonymous tip letter arrived via email just as Jack completed his final system checks. Its plain text message containing information that changed everything. "Check hydraulic line 3B before flight. Someone doesn't want your demonstration to succeed." A friend, Tony Marcelli, stared at his phone screen, reading the message for the 3rd time before running toward the aircraft. "Skip, kill the engines. We've got a problem." Jack's hand froze over the ignition sequence as Tony's urgent voice cut through the pre-flight routine. Through the cockpit canopy, he could see the mechanic waving frantically, his usually calm demeanor replaced by obvious alarm. "What kind of problem?" Jack asked through the comm system, though he was already beginning shutdown procedures. 3 decades of military flying had taught him to trust his ground crew's instincts completely. Possible sabotage. "I just got an anonymous tip about hydraulic system tampering." The words hit the assembled crowd like a physical blow. Selina felt her stomach drop as the implications became clear. Someone had deliberately tried to ensure Jack's flight would end in disaster. Lily moved closer to Chief Foster, her face pale with the realization that her father had come within minutes of climbing into a death trap. "Everybody back," Tony shouted, establishing a safety perimeter around the aircraft. "If there's been tampering, we don't know what else might be compromised." Jack climbed down from the cockpit with the measured calm that had carried him through countless emergencies. But Selina could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened as he processed the implications of deliberate sabotage. "Show me the message," he said to Tony, taking the offered phone and reading the anonymous warning carefully. "Hydraulic line 3B, Tony explained. already moving toward the aircraft's maintenance access panels. That's the primary flight control system. If it failed during aerobatic maneuvers, I'd lose control authority, Jack finished grimly. No way to recover from inverted flight. Selina found herself struggling to process what she was hearing. Someone tried to murder you? Looks that way, Jack replied, his voice carrying the matter-of-fact tone of someone who'd faced deliberate hostility before. Question is who and why. The answer came in the form of a black sedan pulling up to the hangar's perimeter. Two men in expensive suits emerged, their purposeful stride and obvious coordination marking them as corporate security or private investigators. They approached Selina's position with the confidence of people accustomed to being taken seriously. Ms. Brooks, the taller man said, producing credentials that identified him as working for Meridian Defense Contractors. I'm David Klein, representing certain interests that have been monitoring your evaluation of this facility. Selina felt a chill of recognition. Meridian was Apex Aerospace's primary competitor for military contracts, known for aggressive business practices and political maneuvering. What do you want? To discuss the substantial benefits that would accrue to your career if this evaluation concludes with facility closure, Klein said smoothly. Meridian is prepared to offer you a position with significantly enhanced compensation and responsibilities in exchange for a recommendation that aligns with fiscal reality. This program is an expensive anachronism. Your report should reflect that assessment. Jack stepped closer, his presence shifting the dynamic of the conversation. Are you the ones who sabotaged my aircraft? Klein's expression remained professionally neutral. I have no knowledge of any aircraft tampering. We're here purely to discuss business opportunities with Ms. Brooks. The timing seems coincidental, Selina observed, her corporate instincts recognizing the pressure tactics for what they were. Sometimes coincidences reveal underlying truths, Klein replied. The truth is that this program represents wasted resources that could be better allocated to more efficient training. Methods that Meridian specializes in. Providing, Tony emerged from beneath the aircraft, his face grim. Line's been partially severed. Clean cut, probably done with precision tools. This was professional work. The confirmation of sabotage shifted everyone's attention back to the two corporate representatives. Klein maintained his neutral expression, but his companion seemed less comfortable with the turn of events. That's unfortunate, Klein said without conviction. Perhaps it demonstrates the dangers of using obsolete equipment for high-risk demonstrations, or the dangers of corporate competitors who don't like fair evaluations, Selina replied sharply, her business school training recognizing the situation for what it was, industrial sabotage disguised as market competition. Jack studied the two men with the analytical gaze of someone who'd spent years identifying threats. You're here because your company has contracts pending that depend on this facility being available for your use. If my program continues, those contracts become more complicated, Mr. Morrison. You're making serious accusations without evidence. I'm making logical deductions based on obvious motives. Jack's voice carried the quiet authority that had once commanded respect in military briefings. Your timing, your offers, your presence at the exact moment sabotage is discovered. That's not coincidence. Selina found herself facing a choice that would define not just her career, but her integrity. Meridian's offer was substantial: senior executive position, significant salary increase, stock options that could secure her financial future. All she had to do was recommend program closure and walk away from the moral complexity that had been plaguing her since arriving at Nellis. The offer stands, Klein said, producing a business card with contact information. But time-sensitive opportunities don't remain available indefinitely. Get off this base, Chief Foster commanded, stepping forward with the authority of someone who'd spent decades dealing with security threats. Now! Klein and his companion withdrew without argument, but not before Klein made eye contact with Selina one final time. Consider your options carefully, Ms. Brooks. Sometimes the smart choice and the right choice aren't the same thing. As the black sedan disappeared into the desert distance, the assembled group struggled to process what had just occurred. The demonstration flight had been transformed from a test of skill into something much more sinister, an attempted murder disguised as an accident. "They tried to kill you," Lily said, her voice small with shock and fear. "They tried to eliminate a problem," Jack corrected gently. "I just happened to be the problem." Selina stared at the business card in her hand, feeling the weight of decisions that went far beyond program evaluation. Someone had been willing to commit murder to ensure her recommendation aligned with their interests. The realization forced her to confront the moral implications of her role in ways she'd never considered. "What do we do now?" she asked. Jack looked at the damaged aircraft, the assembled veterans who'd been counting on his demonstration, and the woman who held their future in her hands. "Now we figure out another way to prove what this program is worth. The aircraft's grounded indefinitely," Tony reported. "Even after repairs, we'd need full safety recertification before attempting aerobatic maneuvers." "So the demonstration is off," Selina said, feeling an unexpected mixture of relief and disappointment. "The original demonstration is off," Jack corrected, "but there might be another option." He walked toward a second F-16 parked in the hangar's back bay, an aircraft that had been undergoing routine maintenance but was certified for basic flight operations. "Skip," Tony said warningly. "That bird's not cleared for aerobatics either." "But it's airworthy for standard flight operations," Jack replied, studying the backup aircraft with the calculating gaze of someone reassessing possibilities. "Sometimes you have to adapt to changing circumstances." Selina realized that sabotage hadn't eliminated Jack's determination. It had only forced him to find a different way to prove his point. The question was whether she was prepared to watch him risk his life again. This time, against opponents who'd already demonstrated their willingness to use lethal force. The anonymous tip letter had saved Jack's life. But it had also revealed that the stakes of this evaluation extended far beyond program funding. Someone believed the veteran training program was worth killing for, which meant it was also worth saving. Jack's father's wings rested in a small wooden box on his desk, the silver pilot insignia tarnished with age, but still carrying the weight of 3 generations of Morrison men who'd chosen service over safety. The wings had belonged to Colonel James Morrison, who'd flown bombers over Europe in World War II, then trained fighter pilots during Korea, and finally commanded a training squadron until his retirement in 1975. Grandpa would have called this whole situation a cluster, Lily said, carefully handling the wings while her father completed equipment checks on the backup aircraft. "But he also would have understood why you're doing it." Jack looked up from his technical manuals, surprised by his daughter's calm acceptance of what many would consider reckless determination. "Would he? He used to tell me that Morrison men had a genetic defect. We couldn't walk away from fights that mattered, even when walking away was the smart choice." Lily's smile carried her grandfather's dry humor. He said it was why Morrison women had to be extra strong. Someone had to be the voice of reason. The observation carried more weight than Jack had expected. His father had indeed possessed the same stubborn integrity that now drove Jack toward another dangerous demonstration. Despite the sabotage attempt that had nearly cost him his life, your grandfather also knew when to adapt tactics without abandoning mission, Jack said, studying the backup F-16's specifications. "This aircraft isn't cleared for aerobatics, but it's certified for precision flying." "What kind of precision flying?" "The kind that proves skill matters more than equipment age." Jack's voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who'd found a solution within constraints. "Formation flying, low-altitude navigation, advanced maneuvering that requires experience and judgment across the hangar." Selina stood with Chief Foster, watching the final preparations with obvious anxiety. The sabotage attempt had shattered any illusions about this being a simple corporate evaluation. Real lives were at stake. including that of a man she'd begun to care about more than professional ethics should allow. He's not going to back down, Foster observed, noting Selena's worried expression. Morrison men are like that. Once they commit to something, they see it through, even if it kills them. Especially then. It's what makes them good officers and terrible husbands. Foster's smile carried the affection of someone who'd served alongside Jack for years. Sarah used to say that loving a Morrison man meant accepting that his sense of duty would always compete with his sense of self-preservation. Selena watched Jack move around the aircraft with practiced efficiency, noting how his mere presence seemed to calm the nervous energy of the veterans and ground crew. Even facing potential death, he projected the steady confidence that had made him an effective leader. "I need to stop him," she said quietly. "You could try." "But Selena, can I call you Selena? Sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them save themselves." The use of her first name marked a shift in their relationship from professional courtesy to personal concern. Foster had seen how Selena watched Jack, had recognized the growing attachment that complicated what should have been a straightforward business decision. That's a hell of a gamble to take with someone's life. Maybe, but the alternative is asking Jack to live with the knowledge that he gave up when his people needed him most. That might be worse than death for someone like him. Tony Marcelli approached their position, his expression mixing professional competence with personal worry. "Aircraft's ready for basic flight operations. Avionics check clean, fuel systems nominal, flight controls responding normally." "But," Selena prompted, hearing the unspoken reservation in his voice, "but this demonstration won't be anything like what Skip originally planned. No aerobatics, no inverted flight, no high-stress maneuvers." Tony glanced toward Jack, who was conducting his final walk-around inspection. "Whatever he's got in mind, it's going to have to prove program value through skill rather than spectacle. Is that possible? With Skip Morrison? Yeah, it's possible. That man can make an aircraft dance in ways that would make angels weep." Tony's Brooklyn accent softened with genuine admiration. "But the question isn't whether he can fly, it's whether flying will be enough to change your mind about shutting us down." Selena looked around the hangar, taking in the faces of veterans who'd found purpose, mechanics who'd dedicated their skills to keeping dreams airborne, and a teenage girl who was about to watch her father risk everything for strangers who'd become family. "I don't know," she admitted. "My corporate training says programs should be evaluated on cost-effectiveness, not emotional appeal." "And what does your heart say?" The question caught her off guard. Corporate executives weren't supposed to make decisions based on emotional considerations, weren't supposed to let personal feelings influence professional judgment. But standing in this hangar, surrounded by people whose lives would be affected by her recommendation, Selena found her carefully maintained professional distance crumbling. "My heart says that some things can't be measured on spreadsheets," she said finally. "But my job requires spreadsheet thinking." "Then maybe," Foster suggested gently, "it's time to consider whether the job is worth doing if it requires you to ignore your heart." Before Selena could respond, Jack approached their group, his flight suit zipped and helmet under his arm. The sight of him prepared for flight created a knot of anxiety in her chest that had nothing to do with corporate liability and everything to do with personal fear. "Final briefing," he announced, his voice carrying the calm authority that had commanded respect throughout his military career. "Weather conditions are optimal, backup systems are operational, and emergency crews are standing by." "Jack," Selena said, stepping forward before she could second-guess herself. "Don't do this." The simple plea carried more emotional weight than any corporate argument could have managed. Jack studied her face, seeing something in her expression that went beyond professional concern. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Because Lily needs her father. Because this program needs a living advocate, not a dead martyr. Because—" she hesitated, then pushed forward with honesty that surprised them both. "Because I've spent 3 days watching you build something meaningful, and I can't bear the thought of watching you destroy yourself for it." The confession hung between them, like a bridge neither had expected to cross. Around them, the hangar had grown quiet, everyone present recognizing that they were witnessing something more intimate than professional disagreement. "Selina," Jack said, using her first name for the first time. "I appreciate your concern, but this isn't about self-destruction. It's about proving that some things have value beyond economic analysis, then prove it another way. Give me time to restructure the program, find alternative funding, build political support." Her voice carried urgency born of genuine care. "There are solutions that don't require risking your life." Jack looked toward the aircraft, then back to the woman who'd challenged everything he thought he knew about corporate executives. "And if those solutions take months to implement? What happens to the veterans who need help now?" "They wait. People wait for good things all the time. Not everyone has time to wait. Not everyone gets second chances." Jack's voice carried the weight of someone who'd learned that time was the most precious and unpredictable resource. Sarah didn't get to wait for a safer moment to help that injured child. Sometimes you have to act when action is needed, not when it's convenient. Selina realized that arguing against Jack's demonstration meant arguing against the same impulse that had driven his wife to save lives, the same commitment to service that had shaped his entire adult life. But understanding his motivation didn't make watching him risk his life any easier. "Promise me something," she said finally. "What?" "Promise me you'll come back. Because I just realized that this program isn't the only thing I don't want to lose." The admission carried implications that neither of them was prepared to explore fully, but Jack understood the emotional courage it had taken for her to voice it. "I promise," he said, though they both knew that some promises were easier to make than keep. As Jack walked toward the aircraft, Lily caught his arm one final time. She pressed their grandfather's wings into his palm, the silver insignia warm from her touch. "For luck," she said simply. "Grandpa always said Morrison men fly better when they remember who they're flying for." Jack closed his fingers around the wings, feeling the weight of family legacy and personal responsibility converging in this moment. 3 generations of Morrison men had faced impossible choices, and each had found the courage to act when action mattered most. Now it was his turn to prove that some things were worth the risk. The F-16's flight stick responded to Jack's touch like an extension of his own nervous system, every micro-adjustment translating instantly into aircraft movement as he lifted off from Nellis Auxiliary Runway. The physical connection between pilot and machine represented decades of training, instinct, and trust, a relationship that couldn't be quantified in corporate spreadsheets, but formed the foundation of everything he was attempting to prove. "Tower, Phantom 1 airborne and climbing," Jack's voice carried across the radio with the calm professionalism that had marked his entire flying career. Below him, the Nevada desert spread out in familiar patterns of brown and gold, the landscape he'd called home for the past 3 years. From her position in the temporary observation area, Selina watched the aircraft's smooth ascent with a mixture of admiration and terror. Even she could see the precision in Jack's flying, the way the F-16 responded to his commands with mechanical grace, climbing steadily without the jerky overcorrections that marked less experienced pilots. "He makes it look easy," Tony commented, standing beside her with binoculars trained on the climbing aircraft. "But what he's about to do, precision formation flying with an imaginary wingman, low-altitude navigation through the mountain passes, advanced maneuvering that requires split-second timing, that's not easy for anyone. What exactly is he trying to prove?" Selina asked, though she was beginning to understand that this demonstration was about more than aircraft capability. "That flying isn't just about moving an aircraft from point A to point B," Marcus Webb replied, joining their observation group. "It's about judgment, experience, the ability to make complex decisions under pressure, all things that can't be replaced by automation or cost-cutting." On the radio, Jack's voice remained steady as he communicated with the tower. "Phantom 1 requesting permission for low-altitude training run through Echo Corridor." "Phantom 1, you're cleared for Echo Corridor." Maintain minimum safe altitude. Report waypoints as passed. Selena gripped the observation rail as she watched the F-16 level off and begin its approach toward the mountain range that bordered the training area. From this distance, the aircraft looked impossibly small against the vast landscape, a reminder of how fragile human life could be when measured against the forces of physics and mechanical failure. There, Tony pointed toward a gap between two peaks. Echo Corridor. It's a navigation challenge that requires precise timing and spatial awareness. Most pilots need GPS guidance and multiple reference points. Skip's going to fly it using dead reckoning and visual references. The F-16 disappeared between the mountain peaks, leaving only radio communications to track Jack's progress. His voice came through the speakers with technical precision that masked the complexity of what he was attempting. Waypoint Alpha. On time, on altitude. Waypoint Bravo, 30 seconds early, approaching Waypoint Charlie. Slight crosswind correction applied. Each report demonstrated not just flying skill, but the kind of situational awareness that came from years of experience. Selena found herself holding her breath during the periods of radio silence, imagining Jack navigating narrow canyon passages where a moment's inattention could mean disaster. Why is he doing this to himself? Lily asked quietly, her young face creased with worry as she listened to her father's voice over the radio. Because he knows it's the only way to prove what we do here has value, Robert Kim replied. Corporate types understand numbers and statistics, but what Jack's demonstrating right now, the human element that makes all the difference, that can't be reduced to a cost-benefit analysis. Selena wanted to object to the characterization, but she recognized the truth in it. Her entire career had been built on quantifying human performance, reducing complex skills to measurable metrics. What Jack was showing her defied that kind of analysis. Phantom 1. Report status, the tower requested after a longer than usual silence. Tower, Phantom 1 emerging from Echo Corridor. All systems nominal. Proceeding to demonstration area for precision maneuvering. The F-16 appeared from behind a mountain peak, sunlight glinting off its canopy as Jack brought the aircraft into clear view of the observation area. Even at a distance, Selena could see the smoothness of his flying. No wasted motion, no excess energy, just precise control that made the powerful jet appear to float through the air. Now comes the real test, Tony murmured. Precision formation flying. Skip's going to demonstrate tactical maneuvering as if he's leading a flight of 4 aircraft. Maintaining exact spacing, altitude, and timing with imaginary wingmen, Jack's voice came over the radio. Professional, but with an underlying intensity that suggested the emotional stakes of what he was attempting. Tower, Phantom 1 beginning formation demonstration, simulating 4-ship tactical approach. What followed was a display of flying skill that left even the experienced military personnel watching in impressed silence. The F-16 moved through complex maneuvers, climbing turns, descending approaches, precise altitude changes, all executed with the timing and spacing required for formation flying. Except Jack was flying alone. He's maintaining formation discipline with aircraft that aren't there, Marcus explained to Selena. Keeping exact distances, precise timing, perfect coordination with pilots who exist only in his mind. It requires spatial awareness and flying skill that takes decades to develop. Selena found herself mesmerized by the performance. This wasn't the reckless aerobatics Jack had originally proposed. This was something more subtle and perhaps more impressive. A demonstration of mastery that couldn't be taught in a classroom or replaced by automation. Phantom 1 executing tactical brake, Jack reported, and the F-16 suddenly pulled into a sharp climbing turn that showcased both the aircraft's capabilities and the pilot's expertise. Jesus, Tony breathed. Look at that G-loading. He's pulling forces that would grey out most pilots, but listen to his voice, still calm, still controlled. Indeed, Jack's radio communications remained steady, despite the physical stresses of high-performance flight. It was a testament to conditioning, experience, and the kind of professional competence that separated true experts from merely qualified practitioners. Phantom 1. Tower requests demonstration of precision landing approach. Simulated emergency conditions, single-engine approach, gear and flaps manual extension. Selina felt her stomach tighten as she realized Jack was adding another layer of difficulty to his demonstration. A simulated emergency meant flying the aircraft as if critical systems had failed, requiring backup procedures and enhanced pilot skill to compensate for mechanical limitations. Tower. Phantom 1, Roger. Beginning emergency approach procedures. Through the binoculars, Selina could see the F-16's landing gear extending, the aircraft settling into a steeper approach angle than normal. Even she could recognize that something was different about this landing, more challenging, requiring greater precision. "He's flying it like he's lost an engine," Chief Foster explained, appearing beside their observation group. Single-engine approach requires exact airspeed control, precise glide path management, perfect timing. There's no margin for error. The F-16 descended steadily toward the runway, Jack's flying demonstrating the kind of smoothness that made difficult procedures appear routine. But Selina could hear the concentration in his radio calls, the heightened focus that came with managing a complex emergency simulation. Phantom 1, on final approach, gear down and locked, flaps extended, airspeed nominal. Phantom 1 cleared to land. Emergency crews standing by as precaution. The aircraft touched down with barely perceptible contact. Jack's landing technique so smooth that the transition from flight to ground roll appeared effortless. But Selina knew she'd just witnessed something remarkable, a display of flying skill that demonstrated years of training, experience, and the kind of professional competence that couldn't be easily replaced. As the F-16 rolled to a stop and Jack began shutdown procedures, the observation area erupted in applause from the veterans, mechanics, and military personnel who understood exactly what they'd just witnessed. But for Selina, the demonstration had proven something that went beyond flying skill. She'd watched a master craftsman display expertise that couldn't be quantified, experience that couldn't be outsourced, and human judgment that couldn't be automated. The question now was whether that understanding would be enough to save not just Jack's program, but the lives it touched. The new program charter bore Selina's signature in bold ink, its official language transforming the Veteran Reintegration Flight Program from a budget line item scheduled for elimination into a flagship initiative with expanded funding and enhanced mission scope. The document represented more than bureaucratic paperwork. It symbolized the victory of human value over pure financial calculation. Effective immediately. Selina read aloud to the assembled group in the hangar. The Veteran Reintegration Flight Program will receive a 25% budget increase, authorization for equipment upgrades, and designation as a model facility for veteran aviation training programs nationwide. The announcement generated spontaneous applause from the veterans, mechanics and military personnel who'd gathered to hear the evaluation results. Marcus Webb wiped tears from his eyes, while Robert Kim stood straighter than he had in months. Tony Marcelli grinned with the satisfaction of someone who'd always believed in the program's worth. But for Jack, watching from beside the F-16 that had carried him through his demonstration flight, the victory felt bittersweet. Saving the program was important, but the deeper questions about purpose, grief, and the meaning of service remained unresolved. "There's more," Selina continued, consulting her tablet. "Meridian Defense Contractors has been removed from consideration for any contracts involving this facility. Their industrial sabotage attempt has been reported to appropriate authorities, and legal proceedings are pending." Chief Foster nodded with grim satisfaction. Corporate competitors who resorted to attempted murder had no place in military contracting, regardless of their technical capabilities or political connections. "Additionally," Selina said, her voice carrying a note of personal satisfaction, "I've accepted a position as Director of Human Resources Integration for Apex Aerospace's military division. My first project will be establishing similar veteran training programs at facilities nationwide. The career change represented a fundamental shift in Selena's professional priorities, from the cost-cutting efficiency expert to advocate for human-centered approaches to military contracting. It wasn't the path she'd planned, but it aligned with values she'd discovered during her time at Nellis. "What about your corporate superiors?" Jack asked. "Won't they object to your recommendations?" Selena smiled with the confidence of someone who'd found her professional calling. "My valuation report makes a compelling business case for expanding veteran programs. Turns out that measured properly, including long-term success rates and cost per successful placement metrics. This program shows exceptional return on investment. You found a way to make human value translate into corporate language?" Lily observed with 16-year-old directness. "I found a way to measure what matters," Selena corrected. "Success rates, employment outcomes, reduced recidivism, improved mental health indicators, all metrics that support continued funding while honoring the human complexity that makes these programs work." Jack studied the program charter, reading the language that would secure the future of work he'd dedicated 3 years to building. The victory should have felt triumphant, but instead it prompted reflection on motivations that had driven him to risk everything for this moment. "Can I ask you something?" he said to Selena, stepping away from the group celebration. "When you decided to save the program, was it because of my demonstration or because of something else?" Selena considered the question, thinking about the complex emotions that had influenced her decision. "Your flying was impressive, but that wasn't what convinced me. What convinced me was watching how you interacted with your veterans, seeing the care you put into building something meaningful, understanding that you dedicated your life to helping others find purpose. So it was personal, completely personal," she admitted. "I fell in love with what you'd built here, and somewhere along the way, I fell in love with the man who built it." The confession hung between them, like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Around them the celebration continued, but Jack and Selena had entered a space that belonged only to them. "Selena," Jack said carefully, "I need you to understand something about me. About Sarah, about the way I've been living since she died. I know you loved her. I know you're still grieving. It's more complicated than that." Jack looked toward where Lily laughed with Marcus and Robert. His daughter finally relaxed, now that her father's safety was assured. "For 3 years, I've been trying to honor Sarah's memory by saving other people. But part of me was also punishing myself for surviving when she didn't. The demonstration flight was my way of proving I was worth the second chance she didn't get." Jack's voice carried the honesty of someone who'd finally confronted his own motivations. "But watching you these past few days, seeing how you fought for something you believed in, it made me realize that Sarah wouldn't want me to risk my life to prove my worthiness. She'd want me to live it in a way that honors what we built together." Selena felt tears she hadn't expected, moved by Jack's willingness to examine his own grief with such honesty. "And what did you build together?" "Love, family, the belief that people can change, grow, find new purposes even after devastating loss." Jack looked directly at her. "The belief that sometimes the most important thing you can do is open your heart to unexpected possibilities." The words carried invitation and vulnerability in equal measure. Selena understood that Jack was offering not just romantic possibility, but the chance to build something together. A relationship, a shared mission, a future that honored the past while embracing new hopes. "I'd like that," she said simply. The unexpected possibilities. Their first kiss happened naturally, without dramatic build-up or cinematic timing. It was the kiss of two adults who'd found each other through professional adversity and personal revelation. Tender and hopeful, rather than passionate. "Gross," Lily called out from across the hangar, though her smile revealed approval rather than disgust. "Get a room, you two." The teenager's comment broke the romantic tension with exactly the kind of practical humor that Jack recognized as pure Morrison family tradition. Some moments were too important for excessive sentimentality. 6 months later, the Veteran Reintegration Flight Program had become a model for similar initiatives at military facilities across the country. Marcus Webb had earned his commercial pilot certification and was training other veterans. Robert Kim had become an instructor, his patient teaching style helping nervous pilots rebuild confidence. Jack and Selena's relationship had developed, with the careful deliberation of two people who understood that lasting love required more than initial attraction. They'd spent months getting to know each other beyond the crisis that had brought them together, building trust and compatibility through shared work and gradual emotional intimacy. "Are you sure about this?" Lily asked her father as they stood together in the small chapel at Nellis, adjusting his dress uniform before the wedding ceremony. "I mean, she's pretty bossy for a corporate type." "Your mother was bossy too," Jack replied with gentle humor. "Morrison men apparently have a type. Mom would have liked her." "I think so too." The wedding was small, attended by the veterans Jack had trained, the mechanics who'd kept aircraft airworthy, and the military personnel who'd become extended family. Chief Foster served as Jack's best man, while Lily stood as Selena's maid of honor, a role that acknowledged her importance in bringing them together. As they exchanged vows in the chapel, with the Nevada desert stretching endlessly beyond the windows, Jack felt Sarah's presence not as a weight of guilt, but as a blessing of approval. Love didn't diminish because it was shared. It expanded to encompass new possibilities while honoring what came before. "I promise," Jack said to Selena, "to fly with you through whatever challenges come our way, to trust your navigation when mine fails, and to land safely in the life we build together." "I promise," Selena replied, "to support your mission, share your dreams, and prove every day that some things have value beyond any measurement except love." The kiss that sealed their marriage was witnessed by people who understood that sometimes the most important victories couldn't be quantified. They could only be lived, one day at a time, with courage, compassion, and the willingness to risk everything for what mattered most. Outside the chapel, the F-16s sat ready for flight, their presence a reminder that service and sacrifice would always be part of their lives. But now, those qualities would be shared rather than solitary, supported by love that had grown from professional respect into personal commitment. Jack Morrison had proven that some things were worth risking everything to save. Selena Brooks had discovered that some decisions required choosing heart over spreadsheet. Together, they'd learned that the most valuable things in life, love, purpose, family, service, could never be reduced to corporate metrics, but could always be honored through human dedication. The program charter hung framed in their new home, a reminder of the day when everything changed. But it was the life they built together that proved the real value of taking calculated risks for principles that mattered, more than personal safety. Sometimes the greatest demonstration of love wasn't flying upside down. It was choosing to fly together toward a shared horizon, trusting each other to navigate whatever weather lay ahead.